Hi everyone, Michael Britt here. Now, I'm very proud that the Psych Files podcast has been so successful. It passed the 20 million download mark. And a lot of that success is due to my episodes on how you can use proven memory strategies to remember just about anything, from memorizing terms for a test to remembering people's names at a party or a meeting. So, I've put all of these episodes into one audio course. Hippos, aliens, and llamas quickly master the tricks to a great memory. And it's available now on avid.fm/memorymaster. All one word.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Psych Files. We're going to talk about The Matrix, the movie. I wanted to give you some thoughts that I've had about it. Obviously, I'm a big fan, and lots of people are. Very well-known movie. And since I'm recording this just after the holidays, the Matrix movie was shown I don't know how many times. I think what they do is the TV channels, they bring out this movie whenever they want to advertise a big movie coming out around the same time. I think they hope to lure you in to watch The Matrix again, and the commercials let you know about the other big movies. But in any case, now, first off, if you're unfamiliar with the movie, I don't want to go into a major description of the plot, but basically, let's see, it came out in 1999, and Keanu Reeves is the big name. Lawrence Fishburne was in it too. Carrie-Anne Moss, I think her name was. A number of well-known character actors. Really, really fascinating movie. So, definitely something you should perhaps even buy. Get the DVD or the Blu-ray. So what I wanted to talk about, though, was the connection that I see to psychology. Now, obviously, the movie has plenty of connections to philosophy, and there are books in Amazon you can get about the philosophical connections. But I wanted, of course, to focus on the psychological ones. So very briefly, then, a summary of the plot. You got this ordinary guy, except for the fact that he's Keanu Reeves and extraordinarily handsome and all that, but okay, so you got this ordinary guy. He works in, he's in a cubicle, some typical corporate job. I think he's a computer programmer. Anyway, he seems to work for a large organization. He's wearing boring clothes, etc. Regular guy. Then he gets this message from this mysterious person telling him to do things, and this person seems to know what's going to happen to him. And now, as the movie unfolds, that mysterious person is a character named Morpheus, played by Lawrence Fishburne. And we learn that Morpheus, explains that the real world, the one that Keanu Reeves has been experiencing, actually is not real. That the real world was long ago taken over by computers. And they've created this virtual world that everybody sees around them. And actually, what's really going on is that everybody's body is being used by the computer like batteries. I know it sounds a little bizarre. It's not as weird, maybe, as I'm explaining it right now. But, this is a little bit of the background that Morpheus explains to him. So everybody's body is actually in a pod, in some kind of induced coma, and the energy is being taken from their bodies, and the world that everybody sees around them is being created by the computer. I guess that to make them believe that they're actually alive. Well, I mean that they're actually living a regular life. Okay, so that's it. So throughout the film, our hero, Keanu Reeves, has to come, first of all, to believe that this is actually true, and then he has to fight the computers and eventually win out. Okay, so that's the short version. Again, if you haven't seen it, want to go any further, it's really, really pretty cool movie. Go out and get it. Now, the question, though, is why is the movie so popular? Because that theme of the world around you isn't really what you think it is it's been around. It's been expressed in other movies. But first off, just to get a few things out of the way, I think there are a number of really good reasons why this particular version is popular. But some of the basic ones, is that it has, well, first off, it has beautiful people in it, right? So, attractive types and they're wearing, they've got this, everybody's wearing black clothes, kind of a goth look. Carrie Ann Moss has a skin-type, shiny black suit, and they're all wearing cool sunglasses, right? They must have sold a lot of these sunglasses after the movie came out. So it's a very cool look to it. Other things. The music is great. You might not notice it at first, but if you watch the movie a few times, as I have, then many people have, you listen to the music and you say, oh, that music actually is pretty neat. Neat special effects. The first time that anybody saw this sort of slowed down thing they call bullet time, it's really, the special effects are really pretty amazing. So aside from the theme, which we're going to get into right now, and some of the psychological and philosophical connections, it's just a pretty cool movie, just to watch. A lot of new stuff. It's since been made fun of, this whole bullet time thing, and the way that they did some of the other special effects have shown up in movies like Shrek. But, at the time it was brand new. Also, finally, other things, there's plenty of violence. There's a little bit of love. But there's a lot of guns going shooting and all this kind of thing that, okay. That's, pretty cool to watch, too. There's also some gore, a little bit of gore, not too much gore. But, it's like, ooh, that's weird. So, anyway. So, a lot of references are made during the movie that resonate with a lot of people. I have to tell you that I wanted to see what some of the critics said about the movie before I recorded this episode. So I really like one thing that Leonard Maltin said. He's a movie reviewer in one of his books. He said, "The Matrix has a very high MJQ," which is mumbo jumbo quotient. In fact, someone said to me recently, a relative said, I've watched that movie. I really like it. I have no idea what it's about. So there's a lot of stuff that sounds pretty cool. A lot of it sounds pretty heavy. A lot of talk about the search for the one. Is Keanu Reeves the one that everybody is looking for? The one who'll be able to break through and defeat the computers and restore the world to what it is, what it really is. So, okay, pretty neat stuff. And there's a very brief scene in the movie. So the first psychological connection was actually reminded someone in the Psych Files Facebook group called Esther, and she reminded me of this, so thank you, Esther. That little scene, if you've seen the movie, then you'll be able to identify with all this. It's a scene where Neo, that's our hero's name, Keanu Reeves, I think he sees a cat moving in the same location twice. And so he mentions it. It's Deja Vu. And so Carrie Ann Moss, whose name is Trinity, she says, that Deja Vu, that's a glitch in the Matrix. Okay, so, yeah. Now all of us have experienced Deja Vu, and, so we're not sure why it happens, but it seems really weird. Seems like some kind of heavy kind of thing, there must be force in the universe, past lives, that sort of thing. So the explanation that it's a glitch in the Matrix is kind of neat. So I, don't want to be the, maybe sometimes I do want to be, psychologists often want to be the party pooper, because there is an explanation for Deja Vu. You're wondering what it is. Okay, so here's the idea, and there's some interesting research that's been done on this. A really nice blog post summarizes it as well. Art Markham, he's a psychologist who posted an explanation of Deja Vu in the Psychology Today blog, very simply called, "What is Deja Vu?" It's very nicely explained. So basically, he summarizes a little bit of research that was done in 2009, in which they showed subjects some pictures of different buildings, cars, neighborhoods, all that kind of thing, ordinary stuff. And then they said, look, later on, we'll show you some new pictures and ask you if any of the new ones actually are actually some of the older ones. So you've seen them before. Okay, so, and this is an interesting approach. I mean, Deja Vu is a very hard thing to research because you never know when it's going to happen, right? So we can't bring subjects in and wait for them to have a Deja Vu experience, which they probably won't have in the lab. So I still think this is a pretty valid approach to it. So, show you a bunch of pictures of boats and cars and buildings and neighborhoods and that sort of thing. And then later on, show you some other pictures. And some of which didn't look at all like the previous ones, so they're brand new. But some of them were exactly the same, so you might say, oh yeah, that was in the previous pile. Okay. And then others were similar, were set up to be very similar in a way that the subjects, in the way that the objects in the picture were laid out. So, a little bit of a quote here. Quote, some of the new scenes had a similar configuration to ones that had been studied earlier. The objects were different, though. For example, during the first phase of the experiment, people might have seen an alleyway between a fence and a building. Later, they might have seen an alleyway between a train station and a train. So in this case, people often felt that the new scene was familiar. Right? There's something just somewhat familiar about it. Not sure what it is, right? It's almost like that deja vu feeling. The participants often reported a strong feeling that they had seen this before. Unquote. Although I think I added in a few of my own words in there. But anyway, great article. It'll be linked to from the Psych Files website. Okay, so they've sort of, by doing this, giving you these pictures that are vaguely familiar, induced a little bit of deja vu. Now, quote, again, here's how it's explained. If you're in a place that has some unfamiliar objects, but they're set up similarly to a situation you've seen before, then you get this feeling of, quote, a feeling of knowing. You won't actually retrieve any specific memory for the place, but the feeling of familiarity is actually pretty helpful. If you walk into a new restaurant, for example, but it's configured like many other restaurants you've visited in the past, then it's good. It's good for you to have this feeling of knowing. Your knowledge about restaurants will help you figure out what to do next. Unquote. So it's part of your brain's tendency to simplify all of the incoming information. And in many previous episodes, we talked about chunking in terms of memory before. Everything that you experience, you can't take it all in as if it was new, right? Your brain has to sort of put it all together and say, okay, well, this is a restaurant, right? We actually refer to this as a schema. So you have this sense of what restaurants are. You've learned it through experience. You know what to expect. There's going to be tables. There's going to be maybe a hostess is going to sit you. There's a certain protocol to the whole thing. There's tables and silverware and glasses and maybe a bar, all that kind of thing. So, let's see. What else do I want to say here? So there's things you can. So this helps you to put all of those specifics aside, and not really pay much attention to them, and pay attention rather to what is unique about it. But this layout, this sense of the scene, this configuration is, continuing the quote here, is nearly if the configuration is nearly identical. So if you go into a place that's nearly identical in configuration to one that you've experienced before, then you get this powerful feeling of knowing. That's what we think of as deja vu. You may get a quote, in the end, though, the experience of deja vu is just an extreme reaction that your memory uses to tell you that you're in a familiar situation. So in other words, in the movie, so he sees a cat walking in front of something. So how this would be explained would be that in some previous time, he was in a similar place. He was looking at I think the cat was walking in front of a wall or something like that, but there was this similar kind of thing where a cat, or could be a dog, but something is moving in a way that was similar to something in the past. All right. So sorry, no, if this is true, and I think so, think about this, because after I read this explanation, I thought to myself, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. It's and the next time I have a deja vu experience, I'll reflect on that. But as I mentioned, you can't have one of those. You can't have a deja vu whenever you want them. Neat idea, though. Okay. It's really just a memory of a similar situation in the past. Now, I want to thank someone who was particularly helpful in helping me to find some of this research, and that's Annette Taylor, Ph.D. She's the professor of psychological sciences, University of San Diego, and she led me to that article I just quoted from. Also, she is the editor of a great book. It's called The Encyclopedia of Human Memory, and it's available on Amazon. Now, as an encyclopedia, it's a pretty big book, but it's meant really for purchase by institutions, high schools, colleges. So if you have students who are really into memory, you might want to look into this, seeing if you can get your college to library to get it. A lot of really neat topics. I mean, things like not just deja vu, but absent-mindedness, heuristics, cognitive maps, change blindness, more on this feeling of knowing effect, flashbulb memory. So this book goes into a lot of topics, and even the influence of chocolate on memory, which makes it purchasable right there. So check this out, Encyclopedia of Human Memory. And so thank you, Annette Taylor. Now, the scientific explanation for deja vu makes a whole lot of sense. Not nearly as fun, of course, as a glitch in the Matrix, but there you go. Now, another member of the Facebook group, Gene Geist, I interviewed him actually a while back. He is an educational psychologist. He pointed some other connections. So, I don't know if I'm going to go that far into Joseph Campbell. Maybe you've heard of him. He talks a lot about myths, and a very fascinating author. I don't think he's alive anymore, Joseph Campbell. But let me give you a quote from Gene from the Facebook group. If you want to, by the way, if you want to join it, if you go to the website, www.thepsychfiles.com, there is a link there to the Facebook group. And we're pretty active. A lot of discussions, of course, about psychology. So, quote from Gene: "There are definite themes that pervade these movies without most of us really realizing it. Whether these are linked to the collective unconscious." Now, these, which is a concept that was borrowed from Carl Jung. People see a lot of Jung and Maslow and Freud in The Matrix. Collective unconscious is the idea that the human race has these memories that we all share. And that's why some things seem to resonate with everyone. There are ideas in The Matrix like we see in other movies. They seem to just keep popping up all over the place, which is what Joseph Campbell talked about. So let me just finish this quote from Gene. Quote, "We do have shared symbology that seems to act at an unconscious level." All right. And that's why, maybe that's why even Star Wars often comes up when you talk about Joseph Campbell. Star Wars still resonates so much, even 40 years after the movie was made. It just doesn't seem to get dated. The themes are universal, and the symbols speak to our psyche. So he recommends, by the way, another movie called Room 237, which I have not seen, but I'm definitely going to take a look after hearing about it. So there are a lot of themes in The Matrix that just resonate with us. One of those is what Joseph Campbell refers to as the hero's journey. And what Campbell found was that across cultures, there seems to be this similarity in a lot of the stories that people tell each other in that culture. What we find is that in these stories or movies or plays, the main character, the hero, seems to always go through these same stages. So briefly, the stages are that the character starts out, in the play or the movie, starts out like everything's normal. Everything is the way you and I recognize it to be. Let's say if we were to take Star Wars, Luke Skywalker starts out, he's leading a pretty boring life, right? He's on the farm, although he senses that there ought to be something, he wants there to be something more to life. Neo in The Matrix, sitting at his desk, ordinary guy, he's working. And then in the hero's journey, something unusual happens. Okay? There's a disorientation. Something new, something, you don't quite know what's going on. And in The Matrix, again, Morpheus talks to Neo, seems to have some knowledge that just is really weird. Why does he know these things? So you don't know what's going on, and you start to see weird things, and things don't seem to be explainable. So our hero has this challenge facing him, That's sort of the next stage. So everything's ordinary, everything is unusual or weird, and then there's something that the hero has to do in order to bring life back to normal. Okay, and so in the case of Star Wars, so he meets up with Yoda. Yoda reminds him of there being, well, not reminds him, but tells him about these wars that went on and that things have to be fixed. Right? So the Matrix taps into these themes a lot, and I think it's sort of like a wish that there was something more, some greater purpose to life. So things are turned upside down. So there's a period of I'm not sure what I should do it. Should I? Shouldn't I? Right? There's always this back and forth. Should I take the blue pill or the red pill? In the case of the Matrix, blue pill represents the decision to face the world as it is and go up against the enemy. And Luke does this as well with Darth Vader. Right? So at first Luke doesn't know. I don't know if I should really do this. I mean, I got the farm. He's got to make that decision. But he does go up, our hero does go up against the enemy, and the enemy is defeated, and life returns to normal. Okay, so that is a theme in a lot of the stories that we tell each other, and it's certainly part of the Matrix. Now, what about, though, the most prominent idea in the Matrix, which is that the world around us isn't the real world, okay? Now, obviously, I'm not going to go into whether or not it's a virtual world. I'm not going to take it literally, but I think the idea, because we see it so often, I think it's pretty interesting idea. And I asked myself recently, are there any real examples of the world around us not being what it really is? And I think I found a few that I think are worth thinking about. A few episodes back, I talked about the filter bubble. And this actually ties into technology. I think, and the filter bubble is that, you've noticed this, you go to Google and you start searching on something, and Google takes information that it has about you, previous searches, your expressed likes and interest. Facebook does this too. If you tell Facebook that you're interested in something, you will see commercials, right, about that. Google will show you information that it thinks you probably will like based upon your previous searching. Well, while in some ways that's good, because you're seeing things that you're probably going to be interested in other ways it creates a bubble world for you, right? You are not seeing things that might be important for you to see. So a certain world is being presented to you, if I may make this connection to the Matrix here. So you probably see news stories, or you probably won't see news stories that you're not interested in. So that's a connection to. So are you? And this is the thing we have to be careful about. Are these large organizations, a little bit of conspiracy here, creating a virtual unreal world where you only see things that agree with what you believe to be true? Okay, which kind of cuts you off from being maybe a broader, what do they call that in college, a more well-rounded individual. Okay, so there's one idea I think worth chewing on. Other examples of an unreal world. Well, all you got to do is go into the store, look at the magazines, and you see what? You see famous people who are unusually attractive. And of course, they're unusual. I mean, they're probably unusually attractive anyway. But some of them are maybe not unbelievably beautiful, but they are photoshopped, as you know, into these unrealistic versions of themselves. And this is, I mean, we've always had beautiful people, but now we've got, the unbelievable use of Photoshop presents us with images all over the place of men and women who are, really attractive. And this creates, or what they're trying to create, of course, what marketers are trying to create is a desire for you to want to be like this too. And so I think they're creating an unreal sense of what you ought to look like, right? Another example would be the news. Now, the news has gone from being just simply a statement of factual events that happen in the world to opinions, discussion, and arguments. Right? I mean, if all we did was to report the news, then the news would only last a half an hour or so. But nowadays, of course, it's 24/7. And so we can't just report the news. We have to talk about the news. We have to give opinions about the news. And so if you watch only certain news stations, then like before, like, you know, what Google and, I mean, imagine this. If you combine all of these things together, what you see on Google, what you see on Facebook, the news stations that you watch, a lot of them have a political bent. Then all of these things are creating for you a vision of the world that's not really the way it is. So I think it's really hard because of these things to know what's really going on. And those are my connections to the Matrix. And just one book recommendation, great book I read. It's called Trust Me, I'm Lying. I don't have the author in front of me, but I'll link to it from the website. It's called Trust Me, I'm Lying. It's a really neat book that shows how the modern news media can be manipulated into presenting stories in a certain way and to bringing a certain news forward that really isn't news. So it's a fascinating book. And I guess maybe there's two more connections to the Matrix. Of course, the pseudo-scientific stuff, the self-help books, like to grab onto this Matrix idea with the the law of attraction. If you take all of this too far, the idea of the world around you being not really real, then what you could imply, and that's my cat in the background again, Mr. Boots. I'm probably not paying enough attention to him. What the Matrix could be tapped into are those people who would like to have you believe that you can change your world, right? And at the end of the movie, Neo sees this virtual world for what it really is. You can change your world if you just simply change the way you think, right? And it seems to have a piece of truth to it, and things like The Secret and stuff like that. And it's an interesting thought, and obviously your world can change if you think differently. What I guess most psychologists would, myself included, be opposed to is the idea that this change is sometimes easy, right? All you have to do is change your thinking, or that it can be done through repetition. If you just wish upon things, dream about things, and repeat things, that you will eventually change your world. We don't believe that's the way it happens. So, yes, you can change the way you think, but what psychologists would say is that let's help people to think differently, especially those who are, let's say, depressed, or if you're demotivated. The idea goes back actually to the idea of changing your thinking. Cognitive psychology comes originators Aaron Beck, Albert Ellis, Martin Seligman. Broadly, the whole idea is referred to in psychology as cognitive restructuring, and typically a part of cognitive behavioral therapy. It sounds kind of dull, right? But the idea is we need to get you to think differently, and we do that by having you pay attention to what you're currently saying to yourself. What are the words that you use when you talk to yourself in your head? And then think about whether what you say to yourself is, really, jives with reality. So you have to kind of coach yourself. The psychologist coaches you too, but you, by paying attention to what you say to yourself, you become sort of your own coach. So if you say to yourself, "I'm not good at this. I'm terrible. I stink. I'll never," right? Those are generalizations, overgeneralizations. So if you have these thought patterns which affect only one specific thing in your life, but you tend to apply them to other things in your life, then one focus is on changing those thoughts. So it's not like we disagree that you ought to think about trying to change the way you think. It's just that I think we disagree on how easy that is to do and how to go about doing that. Okay, so it's been kind of a fun episode to do. Hope you found this interesting too. All right, so come to the website, www.thepsychfiles.com. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time on the Psych Files. Take care.
One last thing, remember to check out my memory course. You can use these strategies to get better grades on your tests, to remember people's names, and even help you to remember those jokes you keep forgetting. So you will be amazed. avid.fm/memorymaster. That's avid, AVID.fm/memorymaster. Thanks.